Welcome to Hiccups and Hot Flashes, where every hiccup is a hidden gift and every hot flash a power move. We're your hosts. I'm Dannie, an ICF somatic and embodiment coach.
I'm Dori, a trauma-informed midlife resiliency coach.
And I'm Kim, a self-sovereignty coach.
We're three coaches, two moms, and one single gal who all love human design and have real conversations about navigating transitions with awareness, resilience, fresh perspectives, and a mission to give voice to the voiceless. Let's get into it.
Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm Kim, and today's episode is going to be kind of an interesting one because we're going to be talking about something that we all deal with, whether we realize it or not. And I am talking about conditioning and programming. So you see, almost from the time that we are born to the time where, as my friend says, we leave the building, we are subjected to external messaging, which can then turn into internalized beliefs. So for example, you've grown up with your parents in their house that they set their AC to 80 degrees during the summer. And they do that to save electricity costs, which makes sense. It's fine. You're comfortable. You're not paying the bills. You don't even think about it. But now that you own your own home and it's much hotter, you still set your AC at 80 degrees, even though you realize you're hot and you would rather have it at 75 degrees. But that's just what was happening in your home. Or you go to you go around your own house and you are making sure all the lights in every room are turned off except for the one that you're in because you're not trying to waste electricity or money. And for those that know, the stove light. When the stove light comes on, that means the kitchen is clean and closed. So don't you dare even think about asking for something else to eat, especially if it's in your home and you're the one that cleaned it. Um, so what's the common denominator for all of these? Ladies, do you know the common denominator? Anyone? Bueller? Okay, I'm gonna tell you. Parents. The common denominator are your parents or your parental figure. It's what your parents did when you were younger. That's conditioning. So if you can relate, then you get it. If you can't, keep listening because I'm quite sure you'll have some aha moments and, oh, yeah, that's what that is. And I'm just saying that because we're going to be talking about where these messages come from, how they become beliefs and that, we didn't mean to adopt, and how we can decondition from these actions and beliefs that no longer serve us or honestly never served us in the first place. But first, ladies, it's been days and minutes. So, my co-hosts, how the hell are you?
Good.
Are you sure? I didn't mean to,
I was waiting for Dannie to go first.
We're so polite around here. Yeah, I'm doing really well. I mean, it's been a full week. It's been a lot going on. I just love being here because it's such a grounding space and it's expansive and all kinds of things in my brain and my soul light up. So thank you.
Yay.
Yeah, before we got on the show, we were talking about how we've been moving people in our family, and my feet are tired, but my brain is totally. We're here. So
Awesome. I love moving. Moving is a joy. Packing is a joy. Unpacking is a joy. Moving day, not so joyous because I think something's going to break. So, but I
that's
love
interesting.
everything else.
You thoroughly love it. Yeah.
I do. I love it. I love
Oh,
change.
lovely.
I
I've
love
never
change.
heard someone say that it was a joy.
It's so fun. It's funny because when I say it, it kind of throws people back like, really? Everyone seems to hate moving, but I'm like, I love it. I love packing. I can pack up everything in a week.
That's impressive.
Yeah,
Well, I
you
mean,
might be hired.
I mean, because I'm just like so on him, like I need to do this. And I love like the breaking down, the dismantling of stuff where you may have things on the wall and then suddenly the walls become white and there's more space. And it's like, oh, things are moving and shifting and I just love it.
It is interesting how something as simple as moving things can create a transformation like so fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. I'm curious to know, like, because this is our topic today, what do you think contributed to that conditioning for you?
I moved a lot. I moved a lot as a kid. And it wasn't anything like we weren't in the military. It wasn't like, oh, we, got kicked out of our apartment or anything like that or house. Actually, we had a house, had an operative word, and we should still have it, but that's a whole nother story. Um, okay. It's okay. I'm over it.
Something there.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not over it, but I'm over it. So yeah, we had a house, and my parents bought it, and this house was like a community house. This is why I love it so much. So many family members live there and friends, and it was like a rotating door. It was so awesome.
Mm.
And we lived there, then we didn't, then we lived there again, and we would go back and forth. So if we weren't in that house and we moved out, we were living in another apartment or somewhere else, we just, or another house, we would move a lot. And not multiple times a year or even every year. When I got older, I ended up getting, I was told I move every 3 years. Like I had this thing and I didn't realize it. So I would hear, kind of off the subject, but I would move someplace, be there for a year. And the second year I go, where else do I want to go? So I'd spend the next year really thinking about it. And then the third year, I start planning and then move. And I have moved
That's an
from,
interesting cycle.
yeah, and I apparently did that so much that I didn't even realize it. But now my moves could be city to city, neighborhood to neighborhood, East Coast to East Coast to West Coast, back to East Coast to the South, back up to the North. And sometimes when I moved from LA and I moved back to DC. Ooh, um, if anybody knows anything about Southwest DC, it's not big. It's one of the smallest quadrants. I moved 3 times. So if you can imagine, like here, and then I moved up the street and around the corner, and then moved back to the corner. Like I could walk 10 minutes to the second place I moved,
Oh, wow.
and 2 minutes to the third place. I just love moving. I just love it so much. But I would also sell everything and then like start all over. So every time I move,
Mhm.
my transitions, my changes would be starting all over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know. I don't know how that was conditioned. I think it's also just kind of part of who I am, quite
Hmm.
honestly.
Well, yeah, I
That seems
think,
weird to say part of who I am. Yeah.
well, I think that makes sense to me. Um, and the conditioning part is, um, I don't know. I can't say for you what it is, but I just heard like your attitude is super optimistic and super positive, and maybe there's been a lot of healing in that for you, or maybe it was modeled for you that this is a really fun, exciting thing, so that was not something you needed to
Mm,
clear out and all the things. And I just was curious what went into it, but it sounds like when there was a lot of movement in your life, and this is me just observing. I'm not like
yeah.
diagnosing
Yeah.
or whatever, but it sounds like whenever there was a lot of movement in your life, it was a good, happy experience. And so that makes sense that you are like, this is happy, this is exciting, this is joyful. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. I just love it. It's it's freeing. There's like a sense of
Mm,
freedom in it
hmm.
and starting over and kind of recreating myself. Yeah, I love it. It's
Super awesome. Awesome. Thank you. Anyways, okay. I digress.
okay. All right. So, well, we already was talking about like what we're going to talk about this episode. So I want to just kind of put this out there because it is it may get confusing or conflated, the two conditioning programs. So the big question really is what's the difference between conditioning and programming? And to simplify and maybe oversimplify a little bit just for the purposes of this podcast, um, when we say conditioning, what we're talking about are the external messages that we're exposed to. So we're talking about, family, friends, your school, religion, social media, especially nowadays, and your culture. There's a whole lot of stuff that kind of goes into your conditioning. And it's the stuff that we're taught or shown over time. But programming, that can be a little bit more insidious. Insidious, that's the word, insidious. Um, because it happens when the messaging gets internalized and automated. So we're talking things that are very gradual and sneaky, and it can have harmful effects. So it's like this operating system that's unconsciously running in the background of your mind. It's the set it and forget it part of your brain and behavior. So another way of looking at
I
this, yeah,
I want to just throw in there. Yes, everything you're saying, I agree with there. I want to also add that programming, um, like you were saying, like it can be internalized, it can be embedded. And that doesn't have to be a bad thing either.
mm,
Like it can be a good thing. I think the word I would, there's a couple of words that come to my mind when it's associated with good, which is choice and consent.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
those are my thoughts.
Well, and
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
like habituated patterns that we might cultivate for ourselves.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not
So
everything, even conditioning. Conditioning is also about safety and security and
yeah,
programming. You know.
absolutely.
So I don't. Yeah. I don't want anyone to really go into this thinking conditioning and program is just all sorts of bad. It can creep up on you, and you can do things without realizing it or recognizing it. And then when it's called out, you're like, oh, that's why I do it. Oh,
Oh yeah.
okay. Yeah.
That's our little friend subconscious. Yep.
Yes. So I was going to say, like, another way you can think about it is conditioning is being taught or told to eat all your food and, not waste it because someone, your parents, paid for it, or there are starving children somewhere, not eating,
hmm
whatever. And programming
Or
is
there's someone walking to school uphill both ways
uphill
somewhere.
both ways in the snow.
In the snow, barefoot.
Yes.
Yep.
That one, exactly. I think we
Love
all
it.
know that one. And program is really, as an adult, feeling guilty for leaving food behind when you're full. And I have to say that I've had that, not the, oh, there's starving children somewhere, make me feel guilty, but the need to finish everything that's on my plate because my mom cooked it or, someone paid for it. And then I was saying earlier that a long time ago when I was probably out having dinner with my mom and I was full and I was like, oh, I feel bad because it conditioned to feel bad, like, oh, I shouldn't waste my food. And then I
hmm
thought, wait a minute, I'm paying for this. I'm paying for this food. I can waste it if I want. If I'm not going to stuff myself, it's okay. No harm, no foul to me. So I'm okay.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? Like when you became conscious of the subconscious belief, attitude, behavior, then you became very intentional about we're going to create a new habit.
Hmm. Yep.
That's awesome.
It was a
Yeah.
mind shift, change of thought. Hmm.
What I find interesting about that, like saying as an adult, just something that popped into my head was a lot of this conditioning is created at a very young age, and we carry it around, and it can be subconscious, and it drives our motives and our behavior, often without knowing. And so I think sometimes in our adulthood, we bump up against these things that maybe are not actually aligned with us truly, and it
hmm
creates some friction. And there's different ways that we choose to handle that as adults. But often, sometimes I feel like, oh, we are like these 8-year-olds or 5-year-olds or whatever. We're operating from that operating system in these big adult bodies, and that can cause some confusion, internal confusion for us. Like, wow,
Hmm.
why when this happens do I inside feel like a 5-year-old throwing a fit?
Yeah.
Or protecting myself or whatever the case may be. But I mean, just to know that those things have been in place there initially, at least for good reason, or so we thought. And so just
Hmm.
like unlayering those can be a really actually adventuresome process, I'll say.
Yeah. I wanted to just add, I think we're going to get to this, but this is
Yeah.
such a good, like, ooh, this is one of my
Juice.
favorite topics. You've got as a child, you were talking about, oh, Danny, I wish I could remember the exact words you said, but um, the thought that came up for me as you were talking was, see, this is the perfect example of um, I am listening to respond and not listening to understand.
Yes.
Way to catch. Good catch.
Sorry.
Yes.
I was like, oh, I have something to say. Okay. I'm working on that. Anyway, the thought that I had as you were talking was this is like children get their sense of self from their caretakers, right? That's where we co-regulate, and that's the importance of being able to that's the importance of co-regulating, and especially healthy with our children. With children, you could be a teacher, you could be an aunt, an uncle, a grandparent, a neighbor. If you are in that caretaking position, you are going to be contributing to that child's discovery of their sense of self. And so that's where all of that, like, oh, this must be who I am because this is what's being reflected back to me. Then you hit that age where it's like, wait. This is like, I remember being about 9 or 10, and my mom said something to me that she had said many, many times. Like, it was the same kind of messaging. It wasn't necessarily what she said, it was the type of messaging that I was getting from her. And I remember thinking, you and I are two very different people. Like, that was a very conscious decision or like, realization for me. Like, that is not how I think, and I am different than that. And that
Hmm.
was so I can't say that's for everybody, but I remember mine. My experiences started to really differentiate from my parents around 9, 10, 11-ish. So anyways, this is such a fascinating conversation, I think, because I feel like we don't talk enough about it. But anyways, back to what you were
Yeah.
saying, Kim.
Well, I mean, to piggyback on both of that, I guess I'm thinking that, the examples that I gave, conditioning, they're fairly harmless. Like we take
Hmm.
things on, we do have that co-conditioning. It's not the end of the world. It saves us money and electricity because you don't need your bathroom light and your bedroom light on if you're in the living room. Okay. You don't need your TV running all day long.
Ah,
Uh,
so, some people might,
However,
right?
Yeah, I know those
exactly.
people.
And I can be one of those people because then you're just like, I need background noise. I need background noise. But
Hmm.
then if you get into your head, oh, so and so, I shouldn't have that on because it's wasting electricity and money. But then you think, I'm an adult. I'm paying for this. If I want background noise, if I want this movie playing that I've seen 50 million times, I'm going to have it on. Which that movie, by the way, is Pride and Prejudice with Keira Knightley.
Aw,
Yeah,
ah, I love it.
it's the one with Keira Knightley. That's the one I like.
Yep.
I will always have it in the background. So,
Yeah.
um,
I want to
anyway,
just say real
yeah.
quick before we move on, that just popped up was like you said co-conditioning. And what I love about this is we're not stuck here. We have
Mm.
been actually, we can co-create moving forward consciously,
Hmm.
intentionally. And I think sometimes in a situation like this, once we realize there's this conditioning and it sort of got us in a habit or a loop, it can be really frustrating and we can avoid it or resent it or whatever. And I think sometimes like bringing that into the light and saying, oh, what is this? And then, having that co-creation can be really, really profound in your life. Has been for me.
So, how are you co-creating? Like, who are you co-creating with?
Well, I mean, initially throughout our lives, like we are in co-creation with our caretakers, right?
Hmm.
Because ultimately it's the perception, the way we're taking it in. And this
Hmm.
is, I guess, demonstrated in a family where there's siblings and you all grew up in the same house with the same parents and the same parenting style, and you all have very different perceptions of how it happened and how you took it and how
Hmm.
you ran with it and what you created because of that.
Yeah, that actually made me think of, um, you know, the videos on Instagram and TikTok, wherever they are, where they're saying, the youngest child, the middle child, and
Mm.
the oldest child have different parents. When,
Dude,
I can
I know
attest to
this.
that.
Yes. Yep.
Lived experience.
Yep. I have a story. I call it lawful children. We'll bring it up sometime.
so that's interesting. But I totally understand that because, as a parent, I'm not a parent, but you hear about it, it's like, oh my God, I'm not ready. Even in TV shows, I was just watching a clip of some movie, I don't even know what it was, but this man just found out that he was going to be a father. And he was like, okay, I'm good. Actually, I'm not good. I'm not good. Like, I can't even put this fan together. The fan broke. It doesn't work. I don't know how to be a father. I mean, he was talking to this salesperson in this, store, but he just needed to get it out. And I guess it could be, conditioning and stuff like that, but or programming both because, and my thinking is he was a child, obviously, and he grew up with parents or a parent in that household, but we don't really tend to think about us becoming the parent, and taking care of being responsible for a life. And so it was just like it was hitting him. And you just have these random moments with these strangers, and you're just like, I'm just going to tell you all this stuff because I'm having a moment, and I just need to share. And then, of course, it all worked out. He got the fan, but he also got some advice from a man who happened to be a father of 5 kids, turns out. But it's just like, okay, yeah, this was the start of him being a father, him learning how to be a father. And also he said, your children will tell you how to be.
Mm.
And I think that was really, you know, quite
A lot of wisdom
profound.
right there.
Yeah.
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 I do want to add that I think well, I don't want to say I disagree or that I think I have a different perspective on this, on what you said. Because I agree with what you were saying. But as far as like, I think there is a difference also between programming, meaning
Hmm.
like I am doing something without even thinking about it,
Hmm.
and just having an expectation set in my mind that I feel like I have to achieve, right?
Hmm.
So I think those are slightly different, and yet they can be one and the same if the programming, I can see, like I'm looking at my own life thinking there are times when the programming, if I get the programming right, the expectation will be achieved. I'll know that I did all the right things. And then there's other times where I'm like, there's just an expectation that was set a lot of times, not from me. And I just hope I get it right. kind of a thing. So I just wanted to say, I think there's a little bit of difference for me there,
Yeah.
but I also I see what you're saying.
It's interesting because you can say, okay, if I get the programming right, the program is unconscious. So you're not really thinking
Yes.
if I get it right. I understand
It's a
versus like,
feeling.
yeah,
Yeah.
and you have, if you can have that body mind connection, hint, hint,
Hmm.
um, then yeah, you can, but you have to be aware. You
Yeah.
first have to be aware of that because when you're not, you're just kind of free fall. You're taking in whatever is coming to
Hmm.
you. And then but on top of that, you have your other experiences. You have these other life experiences, lived and learned experiences. We're just like you're in this box and then suddenly you step out of the box and you're like, "Oh, there's more out here than this
Hmm.
box."
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I actually have a question for either of you. Um, is there something or has there been something that, kind of what we were saying, that you've caught yourself doing recently or not recently, and you thought, okay, wait, why am I doing that? Where did that come from? Or you know where it came from and you do it anyway.
That's a good question.
Yeah, I actually have, excuse me, something I'm working with right now, presently, in the messy
Ooh,
middle of it.
do tell.
Yeah, I've been catching myself. So, a little tiny context. I am the oldest child. I was born to a mother at 17. We were like besties, not mom and daughter for a long time.
Mm. Hmm.
So that created a little something. And then I had siblings. And then I became parentified. I became like that
Mm,
caretaker for not only mom, but also siblings and trying to maintain the peace there. And so
Mm.
what I've noticed recently is that propensity for me to be in that place and I am a sensitive human too. And so when I feel in my environment this energetic something, I want to take care of it. I want to mind it. I want to make sure that it's peaceful. And part of that is like hypervigilance, like protecting. And I've
mhm,
noticed it. And what's wild about it is that I can notice it in my mind as a behavior. And then there's this physiological component that almost is like, I just find myself doing the thing or whatever. And it takes a lot of awareness and presence for me to be there and say, all right, what? Okay, this is what's happening. And how does it feel in my body? Because those are the precursors to it, to the
mhm,
thought. And the thought can also be the precursor to the physiological component. So again, that kind of loop. And yeah, that's where it came from. And that is creeping up in my relationships. And what I've noticed is I'm in a place where I know that I would like to shift that. And I've also found when I'm in a place where there's something up, it's something big, and I'm in that place to shift it, it's like it's even more hardcore. Like I keep having these opportunities to recognize it and to make another choice.
mhm.
But it's
Yeah,
challenging. It's conditioned.
it, it is. But the fact that, and you said it, it's that awareness. That's step one, right? So now that you know it, you can see it, you recognize it, and you're like, oh, okay. I either don't like it or you just say, okay, let me change that. Really, it's because of more, it's less of because you're conditioned to do it. And maybe you want to say, okay, I'm choosing to do this, but maybe not to that extent, or let me just stop doing it. Whatever works best for you, but you're stepping away from this automatic response and, just this thinking that kind of just comes with it as well.
Right. And I also I kind of in my own mind, I think about it as that's actually not a response.
Mm.
It's a reaction.
Mm,
And so I want to step into response because that does mean that I am in the driver's seat there and that I
mhm.
get to choose. And I find that really empowering and really more of what starts to shift the pattern than anything else is that constant showing up in that place of choice with what is true for me.
What's coming to my mind as you're talking about this, because I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. It goes back, was it you that talked about the default? Um, oh golly, what is it called? The default, something about your nervous system defaulting. And it's kind of easy when your system just goes there. And then you're like, oh, this behavior, I need to change the behavior. At least this is what happens for me. I'm like, oh, that behavior, I'm not in love with that. I need to change that, kind of a thing. But when I start becoming conscious of the belief, and then I become conscious of the what that belief is like how that belief is connecting with my nervous system, or maybe it's the other way around, how my nervous system is connecting with that belief. And I am actively conscious in the moment of, oh, it's kind of like hearing those two tones that don't jive together. And they are just, like nails on a chalkboard kind of a thing. It really does feel that like, oh, this is not aligning with where I'm at anymore. And I've got to get my nervous system on board. And that is the discomfort for me. That is the really uncomfortable place. I don't want to continue leaning in for, to change. I want to run away, I want to go self-medicate, kind of a thing with ice cream or a movie or, whatever. So I'm listening to you going, oh, I can so relate to that feeling of when I start to become conscious of my experience and how uncomfortable it feels in my nervous system, because I'm actually aware this is not where I want to be. And I have lived like this, all the little things that come up with that. Anyways, okay, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but that's what was coming up for me was as I was
Yeah.
listening to you.
Um, you say you're rambling, but you're bringing up a couple interesting points, and that I did have I want to touch on. So what you both are talking about is this awareness. It's like this programming, this conditioning was happening, but then you became aware for whatever reason, through whatever circumstances. You are now aware of how you're thinking, how you're feeling, how you're responding, how you're reacting. Um, and that's kind of like, you're wanting to reprogram yourself once you see
Mm-hmm.
the pattern, because
Mm-hmm.
I say once you know, you can't unknow. But I'm curious, maybe before that, if we can take a step back, how programming really plays its part. Because I was saying, there's conditioning, and then from that can come programming. And so whether you look at it in, saying it's a good thing or it's helpful or not so much, how does that work? What can you tell me about that?
Well, there's such a good question. There's like, wow, there's like 5 entry points to this. Like we could go from any angle here. Um, So let's just start with why, if programming, and when I say program, I want to be really, really careful about the way we talk about the, or the way I talk about this at least, because it's not always like we're not computers, right? So, but there are these, the brain is likes safety, it likes predictability. And so that's where when we start to get into the flow of something, and we can anticipate what's going to come, we continue doing it. Like I know how I'm going to feel. Kind of like what I was just talking about right there. Like, oh my gosh, my nervous system is like, this is different. I know I don't like it, but I kind of want to go back to what I used to do, because I know what that feels like. Even though I don't love it, it feels better than the unknown, you know? And
Mhm.
so that programming is, in my mind, as I've studied this, it is the predictability factor, which is, so there's a guy. I know a guy. I don't actually know him. I wish I did actually. His name is Dimitris Zigalitis. I think that's how Zigalitis. And he wrote a book called Ritual: How Seemingly Senseless Acts Make Life Worth Living. And he talks about this idea that like what, it was fascinating. I listened to him on a podcast. But the concept was so fascinating because he was talking about, how we can do these things that they might not be in our best interest physically, financially, energetically, relationship wise. And they kind of don't seem to make sense, but we still feel compelled to do them. And it's that ritual. It's that I can predict how I'm going to feel in this moment. There's so much more to it, but it was very, very fascinating. Like, how can the brain override what seems logically safe and step into this space, which is this emotional bonding with a group of people? And the interesting thing, sorry, I'm kind of going off on a tangent here, I'm realizing. The
Okay.
interesting thing about, um, rituals is they really help us connect to other people. Like if, a lot of times they'll help us connect to other people, but the whole purpose behind a ritual is to discover more of who we are. And so there really needs to be that differentiation in that space. Is it easier? There is that emotional contagion that happens in that space when you're all together. Um, But if there's not that differentiation, then you stop knowing, like, why am I doing this? And then it just becomes this, that's where the programming starts, right? I'm involved in something that I am not even sure what this is all about. What am I doing? And rituals can be, I mean, it can be like, we go to this football game every year, and we go to this restaurant every year before we go to that football game. It could be as something as simple as that, or it could be religious, or it could be we even have a lot of rituals around the passing of someone.
Mhm.
So, anyways, did that answer your question at all?
Yeah, it actually brought up another question around religion and programming, and I want
Mm-hmm.
to ease into that because I know it can be a very sensitive topic, but not getting into, other people's stories because I don't know them personally and I don't remember everything they was saying, but there there has been quite a number of people, mostly I think young adults, but I'm sure it happens anyone at any age, where you are part of a religion, this community, and that's what you grow up with. You don't question it; it's fine because you're in your space, you're with your people, and then somehow, some way, for whatever the reason, I know certain religions are different, you step out of that to explore, to see if you want to stay. For some reason, I'm thinking of, not necessarily religion, but Amish. Maybe they can go out and kind of see the world and decide if they want to come back. I don't know the ins and outs of that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but and then it's like, oh, they're experiencing other things, and then you just have everyday people who are parts of this loving family, and whether it's you're Catholic or Christian or anything like that, you grow up with. You go to Sunday school, and I mean, I went to Sunday school when I was younger, but it's just how you were. And then when you get older or you see other experiences, it changes.
Mm-hmm. I think that's all connected to meaning and symbolism that we put around those things. So you were talking about religion, but I immediately, my mind also went to culture.
Mhm.
Yes.
So um, what I have learned when I started, so this guy, okay, so first of all, let me just give credit where credit is due. I was listening to another podcast, The Hidden Brain, one of my favorite all-time podcasts to listen to, and he was interviewing Demetrius, and they were talking, and I found out that this Demetrius, he's an anthropologist, and I cannot remember the school that he teaches at. It's a university, but he does all of these research studies and on this, and he was at the time working on he was researching firewalkers because there's a lot of rituals around that. Okay, so when I studied this information about rituals, and I started looking at my own life, and I started looking at the rituals in my life, just even as simple as waking up. I mean, people have a ritual. I get up, I go let the dog out. There's just this pattern of things that creates this. They start rolling one thing into another, but um, that set of movements, especially when it's associated with some sort of emotion, like there's this emotion attached to it, it starts to create meaning for you. And you could have another culture or religion on the other side of the world who are doing the exact same things, and yet they could have a completely different meaning. And so that's going to take on a whole new experience for that person.
Mhm.
But that meaning can then be represented by a symbol. So now it just takes one, like a word or an image, and immediately I'm taken back to how I feel when I'm in that space of, and so that's that programming that we're talking about, like the single word where you're just like, oh yeah. And you just kind of, you can be laughing or or whatever, and all of a sudden be super serious. Or you could be vice versa, super serious, and then get pulled out of it into laughing because of some memory that you have that
Mhm.
was represented by this one word or symbol, picture, icon.
Smell, the
Yeah.
scent. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so powerful, and it really is in your subconscious.
Mhm.
So,
That is powerful. I
yeah.
wanted that came across my mind too, that a meaning that we assign to them also goes back to, like, the siblings in the home. It's the meaning that they assign to it. And in a way that I work with my clients is that emotional charge, when there is an emotional charge attached to something, it amplifies that meaning for you and actually can imprint that even more deeply into your system. And so it's a great tool to use. Like, that's how sometimes, like, traumatic things settle in
Mhm.
with us. And that is also the other side of it, where we can start to unravel those things a little bit and realize, oh, this is the emotional charge with this, I'm associating with this, and the feeling I'm associating with it, and it ends up creating this whole like ball of wax that we
Mm.
like pack around with us. And often it's like so wrapped up in that that we don't realize these layers, these pieces that are contributing to it on this end and this end. And I think sometimes those rituals are like how I use rituals often is to create a new pattern for myself that's more aligned, I
Mhm.
guess. And there's something that I look forward to, and there's something that I anchor in as as a foundation, I guess, because there's so
Hmm.
much insecurity when you're trying to get out of that conditioning. Because again, like you said, it will literally pull you back into that comfort zone if you
Hmm.
are not anchoring to that awareness moving forward.
Yeah. So he did a study with this group of people. I cannot remember the name of the Mauritius, I think is the name of the island.
Mhm.
And they had this practice where before they went out to fish out into the open ocean, they would fish in shallow waters. And he was watching them and observing like why are they doing what they're doing. And eventually there came to the I'm actually remembering, I think he's reading the work of someone else who had done this study. Anyways, he had they were watching this behavior and they were like, I think what's happening here is that they are using this, it's like a ritual that they do in their culture, in their community, to prepare to go out to ocean or out to the ocean because they don't know if they're ever going to come back. They might be fishing for something that is in conditions that are not safe and whatnot. Anyways, so he actually did a study. This is what was interesting, where a group of people were given images and sounds and words that would induce anxiety. And then they took one half of the group and they like encouraged them to do their rituals. And they took the other half and they were just to think happy thoughts and breathe and all the things, but they were not connected to their rituals. It was just this very um, secular approach. And what they found was the group that was able to um, work their rituals into after having this anxiety brought upon them, the group. So you have your controlled group and then your group that was able to apply the rituals. The group that applied the rituals had lower heartbeats or like heart rates. They were much calmer. Like it really had helped release the anxiety. So they were able to make that connection that this is where that's all, this is the purpose of like a ritual for like, why does the human brain connect to it?
Mhm.
And anyways, going back to the programming and the conditioning, but I think it's interesting when it becomes ritualized because that's where we start to soothe our own anxieties and we don't even know why. We cannot make sense of why is this. They used an example of I can take a shower and be just fine, and nothing is happening to me. But if I put meaning on what mud is, and I take a shower and I wash my hair with mud, then all of a sudden that has new meaning because maybe the mud is sacred, or maybe the mud has some sort of meaning to it, and it's a symbol of. But that doesn't make any sense. There's no logic to it. Does that make sense? Anyways.
It does. As you were saying that, this whole conversation about rituals, it just made me think of, yes, that part of human design. I have gate 5,
Mm,
which is about rhythms and rituals and having those patterns because it's grounding for me. And to be honest, I've struggled about what that meant for me because I was never someone that was consistent or had rituals. Some people have their coffee every morning. Don't talk to me
mm-hmm,
before I have my coffee.
mm-hmm,
I don't have that. And so I was telling people, I was like, the only thing I'm consistent in is being inconsistent. And hearing how, oh, I need to find this rhythm and just maybe a ritual or something to be grounded. I thought, oh my God, I'm never going to be grounded because I've spent most of my life not doing that. And
mm,
the more I, researched it and read about it, it's kind of like part of my profile is just, okay, you know what? I need to experiment and be flexible. The whole point is for me to allow myself to try different things to find what works for me. So it may not be that ritual. It may be just finding like a rhythm or something that I do. So there's two things I thought about. I'm not even sure, it hasn't been too long, but I said, okay, in order for me to get going in the morning and not kind of waste time or change my mind because I wasn't ready, I said, I'm going to, and it has to be kind of rhythmic. I'm gonna get up, get dressed, and get out. So if I get up, I get dressed. Even if I don't get out, when I want to leave go out, find some food or do whatever, I'm already prepared. It's really about preparation. And if I get up, get dressed, I can go out right away or later. If I get up and don't get dressed, that means if I do want to do something, I'm less likely to do it. And so that has become something that's really kind of it stands out to me. And recently, and I say all this because recently, um, I got into this groove and I was like, oh, this is what I'm going to do. I was like, I'm going to try it out. And it was a lot, but it was great because I felt so productive. And I got up, got dressed, got out, and I was productive. And then the next 2 days that followed totally changed that. One it just happened. And the second day was planned. But all I could think about was, I want to go back to that. I liked how it felt. And
Mm.
it was something that I never really thought about, but I kind of liked that feeling, that the emotions or the feelings that kind of came along with it. And I was just like, I need that back. So whether I keep it up or not, I'm going to do it until I'm like, I'm over it, or just kind of, uh, you know, change it up a little bit just to see what fits and flows.
What's interesting about this that I'm sensing is there's, I think most of the time, we're not really, it's like, oh, I need money when we need money to survive and all these things, but it's often not money we want, it's what money can buy. It's the time, it's the places to go, it's the, it's a feeling. It's a feeling,
Hmm.
really. And I think sometimes for me, rituals are a way for me to play with a different emotional state in a low risk environment and to connect with states that I find aligned for myself consistently. So I think there's a lot of complexity inside of
Hmm.
rituals, and I'm also
Hmm.
kind of attaching like uh, emotional states, right? We often like to stay in like these desired emotional states of happiness and joy and laughter and connection and things, and then there's kind of these other ones that we sort of like move away from instead of like embrace them more or less because they don't really feel good.
Yeah.
And so I think as humans, like we gravitate toward and we cultivate the rituals that we feel are supportive to us. And
Hmm.
I just felt like that was I found some connections in the states and feeling states there.
Yeah. Um, ooh, okay. I don't want to get too far off of the the topic of conditioning and programming because
Hmm.
and it does, Dori, your anecdote, your story about the
Mm.
rituals, it does play into it and how,
Hmm.
yes, we do things because we're used to it and we don't really think about why, but it makes us, feel comforted and safe and able to say, okay, I'm now back and my body is balanced. My
Hmm.
mind and my body, we're good. So now you can move forward. So
Hmm.
there is that conditioning and that programming that is helpful. It's not hurtful, it's not harmful, but we still get conditioned. And so, before we kind of wrap up today, what I would like to do is just kind of touch on human design conditioning just a little bit. This is not a deep dive, this is like a backyard plastic baby pool of a dive. That's what that is. This
Like
is,
that.
All right, take us
yeah.
there. Let's splash.
So like there's 5 ways that we can get conditioned without realizing it. And just as through the lens of human design. And honestly, this isn't you don't have to know this, you don't have to memorize it. It's just helpful to see that, where the patterns can come from. And yes, this through the lens of human design, but quite honestly, as we've already spoken about and what we haven't even gotten to, there are other means and, scientific means of explaining conditioning. So I just want to go through them really quickly. The first one is openness in your chart. If you don't know human design, there's plenty of resources to go to. Or if you're interested, let us know. We'll point you in the right direction.
Well, a way to explain openness is like where you get to learn,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So think of these, your open centers and your undefined centers as in your chart as like these little energy or these energetic sponges. They soak up all of your emotions and your behaviors and all the pressures that other people around you feel. And this can be great. If you know your boundaries and who you are, this is wisdom. This is your learning. But then we also amplify them through these centers. And so over time, we can start to think that that's who we are. So it's like believing and repeating the statement, I'm super emotional. Oh my God, I'm just so emotional. I'm so emotional. When really, you're not. You just grew up around other people who are emotional. Maybe it's your family, maybe it's just your friends, but you amplified that and took that on as your own. And you're just like, actually, when I'm by myself, I'm pretty calm, pretty balanced. But you've programmed in that. So that the high level takeaway of that is that we often confuse, what we feel from other people as who we really are. So the second one is imprinting and cultural narratives. And this one starts really early, like in the womb early. These are the beliefs, the habits, expectations, and other emotional reactions from your family, especially your mother. And they get wired in before you even know what's happening. I mean, you're in the womb. And then once you're born and you're growing up, we are taught how to eat, how to think, stress, love, succeed, often by watching people more than being told. So that's how we take that in. We inherit
Well,
the,
you start to create the meaning for what that means,
yeah,
which is why these conversations are really important, right?
yeah. And you're hearing different perspectives. It's like, oh, okay,
Mhm.
so, we inherit the how life works from our friends and conversations. And then we realize, oh, okay, you know what? That doesn't actually work for me because I've
Mhm.
heard something else or I've seen something else, someone else's explanation. I go, oh, okay, still more conditioning, but it's beneficial because it's very expansive. So it's not really about, oh, it's not right or wrong because that's subjective.
Yeah,
What,
this reminds me of the story about the ham where like it must taste better because we cut the ends off. And have you ever heard the
no,
story?
no,
Yeah.
I
So
haven't.
so um this couple, the husband is wondering like, why do we cut the ham off, or why do we cut the ends of the ham off? And his wife is like, well, because it tastes better. And he's like, that doesn't make sense. I'm gonna call your mom. So he calls her mom and she's like, oh no, it tastes better. Why do you do it? Oh, because my mom always did it and just tastes better. So they're like, oh, he's like, I want to get to the root of this. So he calls grandma. Grandma, why do we do this? Oh, because I couldn't fit the ham in the pan unless I cut the ends off. So the meaning that had been passed down because no one had communicated it was it must taste better.
Nice.
You know?
Such a great example. That's such a good one.
Yeah.
Perfect. Oh my God. You know what? That's funny.
There it is.
Oh, that's just, oh, that can keep going deeper and deeper in every
We're
generation.
splashing. We're splashing.
Yep. Oh my
Remember?
goodness. Oh man. And it's funny because, huh? It 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 a little bit. I mean, because you went to the grandmother, which
Right.
is funny because the next one is the family energy patterns, the intergenerational
Right.
dynamics.
Right.
So you have like in your chart, you're influenced by your grandparents. So
Hmm.
it's not necessarily the story, but you still have that energy where, the kids inherit the energy of their parents. So you have family stuff that it doesn't just repeat, it happens in cycles and it skips a generation. So, you can have those stories where, yes, it generationally, it just kind of carries down and we don't really think about it. But you can also have this, energetic experience where you're like, okay, maybe, your mom was very permissive and because your grandmother was too
Mm,
demanding and controlling, and
got
so
it.
because of that, you swung back the
The
other way.
overcompensation, right?
Yeah, so it's like now you're controlling because you felt like you didn't get it when you were
Hmm.
younger, and you felt like, oh, I need
Hmm.
to be controlled, and not in a bad way, but it's like just give me some
Hmm.
structure because you didn't have it. But now it's funny because now you are dealing with having aspects of this controlling close family member twice on bookends of your life, your
Hmm.
mother and your child, because
So
it
true.
skipped you.
So true. And isn't it interesting that as a collectively, generationally, what we're really trying to do, this is my opinion, we're really just trying to bring things back to balance.
Yeah.
As I heard you, like we're really just the pendulum is swinging. And
Hmm.
I just those conversations are so important, not just with each other, but with ourselves. Why
Hmm.
am I doing this? Where did this come from? Anyways, going back to conditioning and how far did you get? Did you get to number five?
No, I'm at
Okay.
four. Yeah. But you make a good point because we are trying to get back to, balance, but the pendulum just, it does keep swinging.
Mhm.
It's never going to be still. It should
Mhm.
never be still. So we do have those changes, and you're going to see that, you know, with every generation.
Mhm.
So the fourth one is ancestral programming. So this one is about the beliefs, the stress responses that live in your body and not just in your thoughts. It's like how trauma from your grandparents' experiences might affect your anxiety, your fear, and how you go about your daily activities, you know, maybe for the big things. You're holding that in because you've inherited these emotional patterns genetically and not just behaviorally. However, I do want to say that this kind of conditioning you can change. There's the point of deconditioning, um, and so that's where it gets into the whole possibly like the epigenetics and all of these things.
So
Anyway,
if I can get
yeah.
this out, if I can articulate this, because this is a really big thought. In my studying about this, I learned that our biology has not quite caught up with our environment. So going back to that, we've got a lot of things going on in our environment that we used to not deal with.
Mhm.
And so how do we respond? And so a lot of times our nervous system is responding to the environment with the biology that we have. And if that biology is being, if that is being influenced by past generations, but this is something that we've never seen before, you can see where the discord can happen.
Mhm.
Anyways, so just speaking to what
Yeah.
you were saying.
And to add to that, it's about evolution too. You know, evolution takes time. And
Hmm.
so, yes, we're technologically advanced and we're doing all these things, we're changing. And yes, our bodies haven't, fully caught up. Um, and maybe our bodies are can deal with it, but there's just this back and forth, that pendulum swing of how we're reacting because we're saying, okay, our body it wants to do this, but we're like, no, 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 we're so used to doing this and that fear, aspect or whatever it is, and just like defensiveness, that very primal response. And so we don't allow our bodies to do what it needs to do, or I
Mm.
say, okay, we're gonna like let our minds take over, because our minds know what think, figure it out, all of that, which actually leads me to the number five, the lived experience. And this is the stuff that happens once you're in the world, the relationships, the jobs, the patterns, the ruts and the hiccups that keep happening. So if you keep
Sorry.
We know.
Yeah.
all those, if you keep attracting the same mess of people in your life, mess or people,
Type.
or both.
Same
Yeah,
themes keep showing up all over. Well,
exactly.
they will. The themes will show up, but if they
Oh,
keep showing up in the same way, yeah.
yeah.
Exactly. That's the universe telling you, it's trying to show you what's not aligned. And it's hoping that you pay enough attention to course correct. And the easiest way that I talk about that is like same wall, different wallpaper. It can look different, and it's like it's the same wall. It just looks different. It's showing up differently in your life, but that wall is still there, and you're going to keep running into it. So that's just kind of, what we have to deal with. So those are really those
Yeah.
five different ways of how conditioning through is seen through the lens of human design. Danny, do you
Danny,
want to
were
say
you going to
something?
say something?
Yeah, yeah. I was now I'm gonna forget it.
Yeah.
That's
Don't
all.
forget.
My gosh. Um, we were talking about, oh, I think something important around this is, we take that into the wallpaper. We're just re-wallpapering the same wall. And I
Hmm.
think once we get to the structure of the wall and like the patterns underneath that, I think that's where the magic happens, right? So we keep getting this opportunity until we address the pattern versus the situation.
Yes. Yeah, because that's the resiliency part. We just like, okay, you can't go through the same experience with the same mindset, with the same thinking. Like if you take a step, you're like, oh, yes, there was a rock there, or there was a hole there. You do it again, that rock and that hole is there. So you're going to walk around it. You're going to figure out how to deal with it. You may fall into another hole. That's okay because you caught the first one. And then the next time you'll know the second hole is there. And there's some anecdote story about the hole constantly walking into the hole on the street. I don't even remember. I just thought about
Yeah,
it.
I vaguely remember that.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, you got to pay attention. There's a hole there. You can't,
There's your lesson.
yeah, you can't
There's
keep
your
taking the
message.
same steps knowing there's a hole there and you just are ignoring it.
I
So it's
mean, you
there.
can. That's the thing. Like you can
Right.
You
actually. And there
can.
and there are there are some of us, and sometimes I'm like this in my own life. It's like, you know what? I don't really want to work through that so much right now.
Yes. And that's your
Right?
free
And
will.
we can. And I think some of us can feel big and heavy and like it's an uphill mountain. And I just have to remind myself that it's what's present for me. in the moment and kind of one step at a time and bite and chew, bite and chew. And eventually you get there.
Mhm.
I think you bring up such a good point, Danny, in the sense of you're choosing something, ideally, you're choosing something that is aligned with you and not aligned with something you were conditioned to align with, right? Because that's always going to feel out of alignment if it's not authentic to you. And so I really appreciate that point that you just brought up, which was if I'm not ready to work on this, there's a reason for that. At least that's what I've found. There's a logical reason for this. But what I am working on right now is where I need to be, and I can feel confident in that. And I'm good. Nunez. This is Nunez.
Mine to take and deal with.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell. Um, well, this has been a long episode, very
I
long.
think there's going to be a few.
You
And
originally said you thought it might be 30 to 40 minutes. And I was
I
like,
thought it was like,
oh, Nelly,
yeah,
I don't think so.
yeah. Hey, you know what?
It's okay.
You live and you learn, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the three
Um,
of us, right? So,
we're gonna talk. And we haven't even really touched on, there's so many things that we can, talk about, but that's for
Mhm.
another episode. So, I
so
guess,
my question for you is, what was
yeah,
your takeaway from this?
my takeaway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh man, my takeaway from the whole thing, conditioning and
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the
programming.
discussion today. What was your takeaway?
Um, it's one that's ongoing because every day that I, every day that I'm alive, um, that I'm actually active and thinking about things, I can recognize where conditioning has come in.
Mm,
And as we've said, because I have that awareness, how I choose to change and shift my thought pattern, what I'm thinking about stuff. And that has been coming up so much recently, even over the past few months or year or so, because I question myself. Something happens and I go, okay, I keep saying that. Oh, you know what? I don't even know where this conditioning, where this thought, maybe it's programming, maybe it's intergenerational. I have no idea. But I would say things like about money. I'm not going to repeat it because I don't want to put that out in the universe. But it was always about me not having a lot of money or, oh no, I don't have money, knowing I have a bank account full of money,
mm-hmm.
you know. But in my mind, I was saying, I was kind of, protecting myself just in case something happened.
Mm.
I mean, I literally had a savings account and then a rainy day account and then a rainy day account.
I love it. That's awesome.
That was insane. I don't know why I did that, but and I had no reason in my life to feel that strongly of like I need this security. And so it has to come from, either my mother, my grandmother, that lineage, that generational thing. But even still, I mean, maybe it went back further, but quite honestly, I can't even think of anybody that really had problems. But, I either was a child or wasn't born, so what do I know? Um, and so it may be there, but it allows me to really say, okay, why am I thinking this way? Why am I reacting to this in this way? And so I'm going, okay, that doesn't work for me. It is a thought and belief that no longer served me. It never served me, not the way that I thought it did. And so I stopped saying that
Yeah.
because
It had its time.
it had its time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it took me a while to really stop thinking that way about a lot of stuff because it's so embedded, and you don't even know why you're saying it or thinking it, but it's just like, oh yeah, that's how I am. That's how I am. That's how I am. And now when I hear other people say that, I think, that's not necessarily
That's
how,
how you are until you're not.
No, you're not.
right.
Because it is real it is real.
Yep. Yep.
It is
Yeah.
real in that moment.
hmm
Yes, absolutely.
It's real. And it's just like, it's hard to, if someone says, no, that's actually not how you are, is how you think you are, you can get so defensive about like, you don't know me and this is me. Okay. Okay. You want to hear some stuff? No. Okay. People have to come to their realizations on their own time.
True.
And so that's what I'm doing. So yeah, my takeaway from all of this is it's a constant deconditioning. That's
Mm.
just kind of what I'm working towards. And I know in human design they're like, oh, 7 years to decondition. But then other people say it doesn't really actually take 7 years. Quite honestly, it could take shorter, it could take longer.
Mm-hmm.
Depends on what you're working with and how you're going about doing all of that stuff.
Right. How intentional you're being. That's what I hear you saying. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah, the
Danny, what was your
intention is really
takeaway?
important.
My takeaway is that there is a difference between the conditioned self and the authentic self.
Mm.
And there is a fine line It can be very subtle, it can be elusive, and there are the fact awareness is key. I think awareness is key first and foremost, because then you are in a position where you have the awareness and you can take that step back and look at the big picture. And choice is so important, right? When it's self-generated, anything that's my idea is a good idea, but if it's your idea, it might not be such a good idea. You know what I mean?
Know
It's
that well.
like, as
Yes.
human nature, I think, to have that. And yeah, so that's my takeaway. My takeaway is moving more toward the authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
and that this is a process
Mm.
over time.
Love it.
Dori, what's your takeaway?
My takeaway was, so I'm a verbal processor. So when and I've got the 3420 and I've, all the things. So whenever I hear myself saying something, I'm like, oh, so that's what's going on. I manifest a lot through the words that I say. So in today's episode, I heard myself saying, like, how to recognize, meaning me, I know how to recognize when my nervous system is out of alignment with, or it's been conditioned to be, to default into something that is not in alignment with me, right? With where I want to be. And that I can recognize it. And I don't know, those words were just like, it was like witnessing my experience of this is real. And it is hard. This is a very difficult transition. So worth it. And, I'm so grateful for like the two of you who we can have these conversations. And it's easier to keep leaning in. But man, it's real. That discord between where I'm at mentally and emotionally want to be, is very different than where my nervous system is set. And I've got to just write it out and I'll get there. My nervous system will catch up. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I like how, all of this it does go back to, or it goes back to authenticity and understanding yourself. And Dori, what you were just saying, and what we're all saying is that, yeah, once you recognize it and know it, and as we're saying here now, you can rewrite, or as I say, reframe your story by deconditioning. But first you have to recognize where you're being conditioned and if it's serving you and how it's serving you. So as we've mentioned multiple times, awareness is step one. And I would say that step two is curiosity, because you have to know, you have to, I say you have to have the courage, the curiosity, and the capacity to do the self-work.
Oh, capacity. Yes.
Yeah. Because this is for you. I can't tell you what to do. I can't tell you what's best for you. That's kind of the whole point of what you want to get away from. But step three is letting yourself want something new, to want that new story, even if you don't really know what it is yet. But you go back to that awareness, the curiosity, and learning who you are. So you don't have to know the direction to know that you want to take that first step. So I think that's it. I think we've all given our final thoughts. So this episode has gone a little bit long, but hopefully it was interesting hopefully it was a little bit interesting. Yeah.
I'll be back next week.
Yeah, well, me too. If it piqued your curiosity, or if you have anything or that you wish to add, then just let us know in the comments. And then until then, we will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Hiccups and Hot Flashes. We're here for real talk around life's transitions, the messy, the meaningful, and everything in between. If something resonated, be sure to follow the show, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone who's riding their own wave of change. Got a question, comment, or topic you'd love us to explore? Send us an email anytime at hello.hhpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, trust the hiccups, own the hot flashes, and keep showing up for the magic in the middle.